Hello and welcome to Overview Overwatch. This is a channel where I get to sit down with members of the Overwatch community, pick their brains on some questions that I have, and generally just get to have a chat with them. So today I'm joined by two members of Sheer Cold. We have CaptainPrash on my top left and Effort on my top right. So could you introduce yourself, please, fellas?
Hello, I'm Effort. I'm a DPS player for Sheer Cold.
Hello, my name's CaptainPrash. I am main support player for Sheer Gold and I am the IGL.
Okay, brilliant. So, um, obligated at this stage to ask you guys, Effort, what is your main hero? Who's your go-to?
My go-to is probably Tracer, my best
Tracer.
hero overall.
Tracer.
But I do also play a lot of Soldier Knight.
Okay, yeah, fair. A lot of Sojourn being played at the moment. What about yourself, Prash?
Yeah.
My strong go-tos are Mercy Brig. However, unfortunately, due to current meta circumstances, I have had to pick up on Lucio. I have had game time on him prior, but I had a lot I needed to work on, and I'm still got quite a bit to work on too.
Okay, fair. Yeah, I think main support's a funny one because there seems to be you're either a Mercy player or you're a Lucio player, and there's very few
Yes.
that kind of have that crossover. So
Mm-hmm.
I want to actually touch on Tracer here for a second. Effort. What kind of balance patches do you think she's going to need? I know Blizzard are talking about hot fixing her at the moment.
Yeah, I talked about this a bit earlier today with Crow, my tank on my team, and I was talking about how they need to be very careful about how they patch Tracer, because directly nerfing her damage is doable, but you have to be very careful because if you take away the dueling power of Tracer, then her role kind of isn't there. It's like not the same hero, right? It's the same as if you were to remember to remove the one shot from Widowmaker's headshot
Mm.
or defense matrix from Diva. It's not really the same hero, right? You can't really play it the same way. Um, so I'm really intrigued, but also a bit nervous on how they're gonna patch Tracer here.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like I think she does need a little bit of a work personally, but
Mhm.
I think like you said, there's that very kind of fine point where she's going to be, you know, unusable.
Yeah, exactly.
So Mercy and Brig are two heroes we haven't really seen too much of. I know we saw a little bit of Brig during Jotes, but Mercy in particular, then what do you think Mercy needs? Obviously, not just 5 extra bullets in the Glock, but
Mm-hmm.
uh, something a little bit more substantial.
Honestly, I think she's well, prior to this quote unquote buff that's basically been brought out to her with the 5 extra bullets and like the quick pistol reload time, I'd say it's more of a quality of life
Mm.
buff, especially for like DPS mercies, especially that I see a lot of in ranked. But personally I think she's been in a fine state like prior to it, like especially with like the mobility changes that were introduced to her. I think did help her a lot for Overwatch 2, especially with that
Mm.
adaptation from transitioning from Overwatch 1 to 2, as both game styles were very different, but the same concept still applied for Mercy, which was purely survivability and enabling people on your team, mainly DPS primarily. But I feel like she's this buff was unnecessary, more kind of like why it's like why was it kind of brought out? I didn't feel like personally there was a need. I think she's one of those heroes where it's like she's not a bad pick, but she's not a good pick. But
Mm.
if you're able to maximize your like APM on her, you can basically play her to like the highest level.
Yeah, and I think you spoke about being an IGL for your team as well, and
Yes.
obviously the main support role really does lend itself to IGLs. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I just want to touch on this very quickly with you, Prash.
Mm-hmm.
How do you find, say, being an IGL on Lucio compared to being an IGL on Mercy? Do you think there's any difference in how you approach the role, or does it feel similar?
Well, for me personally, it feels very similar. Like, there are certain compositions where I feel it is weird for my role to basically be the leading like vocalist, as then that IGL title kind of then transitions to like my tank player crew, or depending on which DPS rotation that we have in, either it would be effort or either it would be one of our main DPS starters, CureXU, but most of the time, naturally, it is me. But personally, I feel like there is no like differentiation. Like the way it's just the only thing that changes for me physically is just making sure that I'm focusing on my own role, whether it's Mercy or Lucio, and I'm making sure that I'm not hard tunnel visioning and making sure I'm able to apply plans for my team, like all within respective duration, whilst positioning myself for it, like in sync, whether I need to speed people in, whether I need to mentally get myself ready to get people out. It's stuff like that.
Yeah, very good. Just an interesting one. I don't have much experience in the main support role myself, so I said I'd pick your brain on that one. Okay, so there's one thing I really wanted to cover. That's your first match in the Run It Back tournament. Shoes Money Crew. You guys kind of did the business on them there. Can you tell me a little bit about? Well, just tell me all about it.
So going into this, we we all got into the VC prior beforehand. We were all there like an hour and a half. Like we had like a general team talk plus like VOD from like our practice block the day prior to quickly touch over last minute things. And then the rest of the hour was basically us just doing our own thing, chilling, talking with each other, just kind of getting into the mood. But going into the game, the first map, we basically played it out normally. We went in with a mentality of kind of just treat it like a scrim. Like we get it, it is our official, but at the same time, I wanted to make sure that all of us, especially, were kind of hive mind mindset. Like we're all in this together. If we're gonna fail, we fail together as a team, and if we win together as a team. And obviously, with the outcome that came out, we won in the end. It was very close, however. I will give that. We had a two game lead, so we won the first map and then we won the second, pretty confidently. And then we started to do a few funnies, I will admit.
Yeah, I think we got a bit overconfident.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, I mean, I think that can happen. Like you said, it's your first official. There's a lot on the line, and win or lose, nerves kind of take over a little bit. So, Ever, can you speak to maybe how do you get yourself into the right mindset when you're in this kind of 2-2 situation? Like how do you bring it all together, I guess, to win that match?
I mean, it's not an easy thing to do. It is very hard. Like when you're playing there, you have to focus on the game and try and keep your emotions out of it. It's very like it's a lot of emotions at the same time. You're like you're up 2 maps. You know that you can win because you have won the first 2, and now you're like, okay, now they've taken over 2 maps again, so it can go either way. So you have to just kind of just focus on the game and not let anything bother you really. Very and good. Recenter yourself.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, I think that's a really important part of it as well. That recentering. Okay, so I want to take a way back here. So, obviously this is your first time being in what you'd say officially, your tier 2, your contenders. How did you guys get started in the scene then?
Do you want to start, Prash, or?
Yeah, I'll start this off. This is applying it to more tier 2, right? Or just generically in regards to Overwatch?
Yeah, just in regards to Overwatch and like working your way up through OD and things like that.
Well, for me, I pretty much started on console. I played it casually, like I wasn't really serious. I just played ranked all day, pretty much on console, until I started finding out that there was kind of the equivalent of like console scrims. And when I was messaged, I thought nothing of it. I was just like, sure, why not? This is at the time when I was on Mercio TV, but I started realizing that in this kind of environment, I can't get away with this. So I actually started opening up my pool. I kind of started playing the entire hit like support base back then on Overwatch 1, and I was just like, you know what? Like, I really enjoy this, and I know PC is the scene for this. So then I made the transition to PC, and I was like, let me try something new. I started on tank. I was a diamond tank player for like 6 seasons until I was getting stomped. I took a season off because there was hackers and like Smurfs, and I was just like, I really cannot be arsed with this. So then I kind of went back to console for that one season. I was just like, nah, you know what? If I'm gonna make a comeback, I'm gonna make a comeback on my main role. And it was very easy. Like because I already had the game sense from console.
Yeah.
Like that's one thing I knew I could transition over, and I hit masters and then GM pretty quickly. And then I started dabbling around in more of the scrim scene for Overwatch on PC at least. And then my kind of first breakthrough was kind of when I was entering more into the tier 3 scene. Like I was playing on teams like Lotus. I was playing on like all these other mixes until I was picked up by Adfriend, and that was kind of a more of a bigger step up for me. Um, and just playing officials with them, like in OD. Well, under OD we was Brahmin, but I played all these other tournaments with them, like that had more cash prizes and stuff, and it was
Yeah.
just like this is like really going well. Until I had my own personal OD upset with these guys, and we kind of fumbled in a match we shouldn't have, and that was kind of more like the setting stone for me. It was just like I kind of need to step up my own stuff, uh, and kind of where I realized that I know I can, from me as an individual, that I can actually like lead a team, and I failed my lot then, and that really hit me. So then I felt like I let them down. So I decided moving on that I'm going to do what I can, even if it means that I have to lose my vocal cords, like I really will. But and I played around in lands, particularly this year. I went to Paris for the first one on Overwatch 1. That was my first ever one, but it got cancelled.
Yeah.
So we pretty much, like the rest of the community that was in Paris, pretty much just got drunk the entire night. And then uh, the first official like German LAN I played in, it was in Germany, Hamburg, and we came second in the groups and then finished third in the overall like knockoffs. And we also had to face Munich, which had like a mix of players like Choose, Slay, Ange, and we were the only team at that LAN that really took a map off of them. We nearly took a map of them in the groups, and we took like a physical map off of them on stage while we were being streamed. And I was just
Wow.
like
It's a good feeling.
we can do this,
Yeah.
yeah. And then Contenders Summer Series came around. I was picked up for Frostels,
Yeah.
and that was a very, very good experience for me. I respect all the players from that roster highly, and it was just I know like this is the place like I've always kind of strived to be in, with all these great talented individuals, and I wanted to be in that place. And it was my time to show until we lost to 0-1 for our game to make it into B-sides.
Yeah.
So we were top 16. It was pretty much like the rest of the top 8 OD versus the other 8 contenders teams. The other 4 like OD teams made it through, and then unfortunately my lot we didn't make it through. And also that was also another setting zone. It was just like, all right, this is the next step forward. Then recent Paris LAN happened. Another personal like upset from me. I kind of choked in the semifinals, and uh, I was very stressed out personally from all other personal factors, like traveling to another country by myself and like stepping up to perform, especially in my gameplay. I did not step up, and that's something that will also reside with me. But then that moment especially was the biggest turning point for me. Like when I came back home from the Eurostar, I was just like, I really need to step up my stuff. And during this time, this Paris LAN was also when trials was going on for the recent OD that happened for this contenders. And I also had a decision to make to join my friends team, which I'm very good friends with. Uh, I had a few other trials for teams like Henningsen Sons, but personally, I didn't feel like I was going to make it in. Um, but then I was also offered to join the Sheer Cold project, and I was just like, this is new. I prior worked with Reggie for Well English on Overwatch 1 with basically half of the roster from the other half of the roster, which is like QRXU and crew. I played with them before. I was just like, I've played with these fellas before. Like, I'll gladly play with these fellas again. And then that's when I also got effort into the roster because he was ringing for us, and I was just like, holy, like this guy's crazy. Like he's legit.
Okay,
He's doing well.
so let's hear from you, Effort. Then, how did you get into? Let's say, bring us up to that exact kind of scrim you rang.
Okay, so originally I was pretty. I would not say in down mood, but like I would just say like in a. I was planning to stop playing Overwatch completely.
Okay.
To go and get a normal job, at a store or something. And one day, I forgot if it was Reggie or Prash, but someone DM'd me. I was like, "Hey, we need the ringer really quick for this scrim." And I played, and I played. In my opinion, I played very well. Uh, and after that, Reggie talked to me a bit, and he was like, we're still missing a spot for DPS player, and if you want, we can pick you up. And I said, sure, why not? So that's it. Like I tried it. I got the place, I got the spot, and then we played, and then it worked really well.
Very
I'd
good.
say.
Yeah, very good. Look, like I said, guys, I thought you guys made an absolute splash in the run it back tournament. Like, it's really great to see. Um, I want to just touch on we talked about the SMC game, but I want to touch on maybe being in that tournament in general. Like, how did that differ to say all your previous experiences?
I
Well,
mean,
go on, effort.
yeah, with the SM, like with a contender tournament, like it was. I think the biggest difference is probably the title. Like that, and there's better players in the title. That's the only real difference, because the actual games itself, they were not like when you went into the game, you didn't feel like you didn't belong to be there. You kind of felt like it's a new place. I know I'm not gonna be at the top, but like I'm gonna do my best, and I'm gonna prove to them that I deserve to be here. And I think that's the biggest thing about getting to the tournament. It's like showing not just the players in the tournament, but also outside the tournament that you're like not just someone that got in based on luck, that you got in and you because you deserved it. I think that's the big thing. Otherwise, it's just like any other tournament, in my opinion. I felt like.
Yeah, Prash, you saying that? Agree with that? You kind of have that same idea, yeah.
Yeah, entirely. Like we did so much prep, like especially after when we kind of finalized our rosters, because
Mm-hmm.
GameBat was basically locked your roster in like I think it was like a week before like the actual official, or two, I can't remember.
Mm.
But
I think it was the week.
like pretty much most of us, like even though we were still going through like a trial phase, we kind of had like an idea on like who we really wanted to play with. And because we already half of us already had good synergy with each other prior, it was just like, well, this is already like kind of a good stepping start. Um, and then once we had the other players that we needed, it was just like this is done deal. Like we all have like a good mindset. All of our minds are open to criticism, feedback, even if it's just subtle banter like amongst us guys. Like
Yeah.
even when we didn't have our coaches there, like we would hold each other to each other's standards. Like if I expected something out of effort, um he would hold himself to it, and just like how people would expect me to kind of make sure that I'm consistently like providing input and comms, people would make sure that I held up on my end. Like we really care for each other, and at the same time I feel like we have become really good friends in this too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's just something I wanted to kind of touch on in terms of like the team culture. I think it's a massive like a really important kind of element of a team. Um, what are some of the measures, especially coming from the IGL role here? What are some of the measures you kind of have in place to maintain a constructive team culture?
Well, naturally, there are stuff that can go, the like ups and downs. That's the best way I can put it. There will be highs and there will be lows, and especially during our lows, for some people, it was just more making sure that they're more okay, like mentally, so that they're not really overexerting their mental energy and uh emotional being into it, because all of us are really dedicated, and especially for some of us, like
Mm-hmm.
we get really passionate to the point where like we it can like to an extent like really overcome our own being. But as someone that can sympathize with both sides, because I'd personally say I'm one of those people that is like very, very emotional into this game too.
I think your neighbors can say
Um,
they agree.
uh, I like we have team talks. We always have team talks. Like we would message each other if like critique wise, like if there was something wrong in gameplay, we would try and address it if we could keep it short and concise.
Hmm.
Um, in regards to like team mental, we would just pretty much have a specific moment within the week where we would just talk, even if it was just like general banter. Like the overall like team talk for the evening could have just been us just talking with each other, chilling, like flaming each other, like an inner joke that we have with effort is like nice aim effort, because sometimes he'd whiff his shots and he would get partially upset.
Yeah,
So
I
as a
would get
way
very
to kind
upset.
of as a way to bring up morale, like we kind of subtly flame each other and we're just like, oh, nice aim effort, like when you're gonna hit your shot effort.
Yeah.
And like it does motivate him to actually like hit his shot, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Like it all depends on
Mhm.
the individual's mood. Like yes, sometimes it can backfire, and that's when we know like when to control our limits with like
Mhm.
kind of digging into each other and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's never ill intent. There is never
No.
the ill intent behind it.
There's
So
also the thing with the Prash when you Ajax every beat.
it's not a good look either, I can imagine.
No, no.
um, so effort, I just want to come to you here. Just in terms of say, you know, Tracer's one of those heroes where I think confidence is king. Like
Mhm.
if you're feeling yourself in the server, you're probably going to be doing pretty well. Um,
Yeah.
but that kind of has a caveat where you need to have a pretty decent mental going into a server. Like, how do you self-regulate your mental kind of, um, just your mental in general, I suppose.
So like for me, I think that's a hard question to answer because like working on my own mental stuff, I've done since like primary school. Like I've always worked on my own mental stuff. Um, because when I was very young, from was first to fourth grade in primary school, I was bullied and I had like really like anger issues.
Mm.
And one day I just decided like to I didn't want to be that guy that just lost control all the time. So I just started working on myself. I started working on not tilting, not like keeping control of myself. And after that, like that thing that like when I started doing that, early in my life, uh, has helped me now. Where it's like I don't really have the games when I go in, and I feel like I I'm unsure or like any like my emotions don't really overflow in the same type of way. So I've always had this control pretty much now. So I wouldn't say it's particularly difficult for me, and that's why it's a hard question to answer.
Fair. Well, I'll go to Prash with it then. What do you think?
Are you able to repeat the question by any chance?
Well, I suppose the question goes a little bit different here. I think for you, I might be wrong here, but as an IGL,
Mhm.
if your mental goes down, it probably
Oh yeah.
reflects pretty quickly with the rest of the team.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So how do you manage how do you manage to keep your mental up?
For me, again, like I've kind like as an individual, I've been all over the spectrum. Like as a player, like um, I've had phases where I'd just play where I'm angry. Like I'd play for tilt. I would um play through the highs, like enjoyment, like shouting. And honestly, I've realized that I'm very energetic, and it does show in comms. Like I did have a clip um, from Flash Ops in 2021 that kind of made a meme out of me where I was shouting every single comm. Like normally there's just comms that you can shout like in urgency, like someone's behind you or 1 HP. No, I was shouting everything. Like I don't know why. I just got so passionate. I just started shouting
They
everything.
have Valk. They have Valk.
Yeah. I started like the iconic meme of me where I shout Ryan, like I went into the ranked like the next few days, and pretty much like I was just like, Prash, can you say your iconic line? But but for me, mentally regarding around that, like I was very anxious. Like I'm very anxious because I know I can be the pivotal point, especially as an IGL, and the pivotal point. Sorry, and for the good and for the bad. Like so, it feels like I'm kind of the crutch. And for me personally, I just know that whatever I say or whatever I do in the moment, it does not matter. Like it doesn't matter if I'm right. It doesn't matter if I'm wrong. The only thing that really matters is making sure that I'm doing what I can to keep the team on the same page, and that's all that matters. And again, it's detaching your emotion uh to who you are as a player. And personally, when it comes to leading, like even if it's just like leading in your own gameplay, or for me, it would be leading in comms. Uh, whatever's happened or is happening does not matter. It really doesn't matter. Like the only thing that matters is in the moment, what's happening in front of you. You need to make sure that you're taking in information, you're processing the goods and the bads of it, and it's just focusing on gameplay. Like I make sure that my focus is key on gameplay and making sure that, as well as if I notice there is some fatal flaws within my own team, if I'm able to construct a call or a plan around it, I can try and make that a last second call to kind of bring people out of it. But for me, mentally, it's like I'm very flow state. Like that there could be noise going on outside my window, like a car crash. I would not recognize it, like because I'm just so focused.
Yeah.
And with that, it's just getting good sleep, making sure that I'm not drinking too much caffeine, um, and also just I do like a pre-ritual for officials, especially. Like I always do like a ritual and make sure that I'm there for myself so that I can be there for the team.
Effort, do you have any sort of pre-ritual or routine like that?
Yes, kind of. It's more. I wouldn't call it a ritual, but it's just something that I do. So it's like before I get into like important games, I do a lot of stretches, like for arms and hands and fingers, um, because I mean, there's scientifically proven that a lot of the muscles in your arm and hand you don't really use that often, but you use them while you're gaming, and they kind of go back to sleep if you don't wake them up. So I usually do stretches. I drink a lot of water, uh, and that's the big thing usually.
So just as a kind of a general question, just to uh, tease out some things about maybe your time in sheer cold, was there much of an emphasis from the top down on things like um, routines, rituals, mental and physical health? Were these things that were touched on by coaches and management in sheer cold?
Yes, heavily. We have multiple channels obviously within our Discord. Like we have team chat, we have hashtag team discussions. With more regarding to our coaches, like we have setups there for us. Uh, F knows the inside joke of hashtag setups. Um, like our coach would always make sure that we're going through the information that he's given us,
Hmm.
but especially with like choking and stress and more on mental. We even have a specific channel, and he has made a document on how to
Yeah.
prevent choking and stress, and he makes sure that even okay, so more regards to when we're like in a scrim or when we're in official, like when he has that speaking time, he'll make sure that we're gathering our thoughts and like we're chilling, we're getting our breaths back in. He'll even say like, go walk around your room and go get some water. He really does, like, especially Reggie and Optimus. They really care for our well-being, and honestly, I love them to bits for it. Like I feel like they're one of the leading causes that we're able to
Hmm.
perform at our best because they actually took into consideration our physical well-being and feedback from individuals, like if they were feeling off or if they were
Hmm.
feeling off about another individual. Like stuff like that is bound to happen, but it's sitting people down and making sure that it's whatever's happening, good or bad, as long as the roads basically realign and make sure that we're heading in the same path, that's all that matters. Our
Yeah.
coaches heavily do focus on like our well-being.
Hmm.
It's great to hear. Yeah, look, I think more and more it's become apparent how influential it is, for
Yes.
players in
Hmm.
the game. Um, although I do think, just from my own understanding of it, there's a decent proportion of it in Overwatch compared to what I've seen in other scenes. So that's
Mm-hmm.
it's good. It's just always good to
Yeah.
check in and see what the story is with it. Okay, so I want to go um, a little bit big picture here, as I like
Mm-hmm.
to do. So tier two is getting a little bit of flack recently from people I've interviewed. Uh, More specifically, Blizzard's handling in tier two. Um, I haven't heard a player's perspective of it. So Effort, I'm going to go to you with this.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts on how tier two is being handled?
I think that they are okay. Honest opinion, not that well. I think that they want to run their scenes very strict and like with their own ideology, kind of, and like no real feedback from the players does like gives an impact on their decision making, and I think that is a big reason why it's so bad, or like why there's so many mistakes that happens. uh they really like they want to rule with a iron thumb, or I forgot the saying,
Iron
but
Fist. Yeah,
iron fist.
yeah. I like Iron Thumb though. That might work too. Um, so Prash, I want to talk to you then just about
Mm-hmm.
maybe you don't know this, but in terms of how EU is kind of handled compared to NA, is there any room for growth in the EU scene specifically with how it's handled?
Um, Personally, with what I've seen with the tier two scene, from my POV at least, NA it does look more kind of cleaner. Plus, just the slightest bit. I wouldn't say entirely, but slightest bit more structured. But that's mainly because of like the history with tier two with NA, because our Overwatch League was primarily run
Mm,
in like kind of America and like all the other places, right? So like even like when officials were run for OWL, etc. Like USA was basically like one of the primary places for it.
yeah,
So like especially with like the recent Overwatch League that was run. Actually, no, sorry, that's not USA. That I think it was Canada. But anyway, like the academy teams, the like how'd I say it? So I yeah, like the path to pro, like there is more resources and kind of the manpower, I'd say, in NA than there is EU.
and I also think, just when you think about the Overwatch League, because
Hmm.
a lot of people in tier two, that's the end goal, and we'll
Hmm.
touch on this in a bit, but
Hmm.
it's quite difficult from EU. Like teams are reluctant to take a chance on EU talent when you're considering visas
Hmm.
and accommodation and all this sort of
Hmm.
stuff. Um, which I think is probably one of the reasons. But I think there's some room for growth in how we approach the EU scene as well. So
Yes.
thinking of growth and futures, then guys, goals for the future. What what are your guys talking the next maybe 3, 4, 5 years? What do you guys want to achieve?
Go on,
I
Evan.
mean, Overwatch League is obviously the end goal, uh, but I think for the next year, I'd say maybe two. Uh, the goal right now is just to be, consistently contenders, and towards mid to top contenders. That's like the goal for the next 2 years, and then after that is to get to Overwatch League, obviously.
Prash?
Pretty much the exact same thing. The dream goal would be Overwatch League,
Yeah,
but you gotta structure it. So
of
my
course.
realistic goal would be to win contenders more for the near future for now. So in 1 to 2 years is kind of keeping my foot in and maybe even securing top three, maybe even winning contenders. That would be very
That'd
nice.
be great. Yeah, of course.
And further on past that, basically having consecutive performances, so like top three, top two, maybe even winning, and maybe even luckily enough to get maybe even get a slight taste of like Overwatch League tryouts. Who knows?
Yeah, fair. Any final words then, guys, for the viewers before I leave you go?
Don't
Mm,
know.
I mean, go follow my Twitter.
That is there, I believe. Yes, we're getting there.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I'd personally say this to those that basically do have aspirations of making it even into higher tier 3, higher tier 2. Maybe you're even good enough to make it into tier 1. Just stay true to yourself, man. Honestly, stay true to yourself. There's going to be
bro.
so many people that will constantly talk down on you. There'll even be judgments, even small critique words. It really doesn't matter as long as you listen to your own voice. Like I made it here, personally, where I am now, because I always had self-belief, despite me doing so many dumb things. I'm not a perfect human being. I'll promise you that. When it comes to having to play the game properly, I do very dumb things like Ajaxing and stuff. I legit Ajaxed my way through OD, and even in the prep to contenders. Like I promise you, I'm not perfect, but um, as long as you know within yourself, and again, thanks to the people that I've had around me, my teammates currently, Reggie, Optimus, and a shout out to some of my old friends, Mentally Boomed, Sage, uh, and my old former teammates. Like they've really kind of helped me out, whether it's just small conversations, letting me play with them, to uh, just even socially being around them. Like everyone's had some influence on me in some way, shape, or form. But in the grand scheme of things, honestly, just stay true to yourself. Like you will be surprised with what you can pull off.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Prash, I really
Damn.
think you showed effort up there plugging his Twitter,
Yeah.
you know, but
Like, oh, yeah, go follow my Twitter. You're like, yeah, just speak.
I know it's brilliant. Look, it was a pleasure to talk to you guys. Really glad I
Thank
got
you
the
for having us.
opportunity. So look, give him hell. Support tier 2, everyone, and
Real.
we'll see you next week for another episode. Thank you.